about this next session. We'll be discussing deconstructing diversity. So I see some of our panelists are joining us. Okay, perfect. See Joy. Let me make sure we are in the lobby as well. Okay, we're also in the lobby. Are we in the lobby? Okay, awesome. We are in the lobby. So with that being said, we're excited just to continue the day. We'll be sure to ping everyone, but with that being said, I can go ahead and, pass it over to Joy and Sham as well. So Joy, will you need to share your screen? I can.
Yes, please. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, I'll make you host now.
Okay, great.
Those capabilities. Thank you so much again, and I'll make sure we're good to go now.
Okay, wonderful. So let's see. Let me just make sure my screen is sharing. Does everybody see that?
Yes. It says Magna HBCU Media Day.
Oh, great. Okay. So I know folks are still coming in, and I know you all have had an exciting day, an action-packed day. So it's such a pleasure to meet you. Myself and Sham, we're both from Magna, and we're excited to host this workshop on deconstructing diversity today. I thought what we would do is just spend a few minutes introducing ourselves. I am Joy Profit. I am head of growth and operations for Magna, but I also wear another hat with Magna, which is very exciting in that I get to work as a part of the leadership team in a very large cross-agency initiative called the Equity Investment Initiatives here for Magna and for media brands. And what that initiative does is it couples the insights that come from our research that Magna does. And I know that you all had an intro to Magna earlier today, and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. There may be a few slides that you may have seen earlier today, but I think it's really important to note that a lot of our initiatives, our strategic investment initiatives, are led by the research and insights that our analysts and our research teams generate that help to inform what the gaps are in some of our equity-related investments and how we can use those insights to better educate and inform the marketplace as to what some of the opportunities look like when it comes to investing in more diverse media partners. And so I'll talk a little bit about that during my introduction. And then I'm so excited to have Sham here. She'll introduce herself and she'll talk about one of my favorite media trials that we did last year called Deconstructing Diversity Today. And she'll explain a little bit about our media trials, what those are, and then again, how that helps to inform our approach to thinking about some of the initiatives that we do and some of the initiatives our internal clients do. And then we were hoping that we can have an open discussion, although I think that we can still do that on the platform by just enabling audio and enabling video, but we're hoping to have an open discussion on identity and culture, and then finally to answer any additional questions you all may have. So with that, just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about my path into media brands. I actually started, I've had a media career now for over 20 years. I can't believe it when I think about just how long I've been in media. And the thing that attracted me to media was ultimately the storytelling of media. At the core of it, what content companies do is tell stories that create impact. And you can be at companies that are as large and as sort of multi-dimensional and omni-channel as an NBC Universal that has many different types of platforms like Oxygen Media or Bravo Network. They have many different types of platforms that approach storytelling from a very specific lens. Or you can be at smaller companies like what I started my media career at NBC Universal. Then I transitioned to Time Inc. And then I joined a spinoff of Time Inc., Essence Communications, as a independently Black-owned media company. And Essence was devoted to telling stories about Black women in ways that other media companies had not told stories. In fact, I grew up as a young girl with Essence magazine in our home, and my mother would oftentimes show me these breathtaking images of beautiful Black women of all shapes and sizes, all hair textures, all skin complexions, all heights. I mean, and it was just really beautiful to see these stories, but also women who chose various career paths. Some women who were celebrities and entertainers and performers, some women who were caregivers and homemakers and raised their children, and other women who decided to pursue corporate America and professional careers and financial industries or media industries or consumer products industries. There was a whole host of stories that Essence would tell about these Black women. And for me, growing up as a young girl in a sort of lower income community, it was Inglewood, California. It's actually the city that hosted the Super Bowl. But when I was growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, Inglewood was actually a community that had gangs. It had drug violence. It had a lot of destructive and distracting activities for young students. And so for me, looking and reading those stories in Essence helped me to be aspirational and to see myself as coming out of a difficult environment and having the opportunity and the chance to make it into a different type of world and into a different type of future for myself. So from there, I ended up going on to a magnet school. I was bused to a magnet school for high school each day in Carson, California, and then went to UCLA for college. So I didn't go to an HBCU, but I did go to UCLA at college, ended up joining a sorority, Sigma Gamma Rho, and had a great career, introduction to various careers. I majored in business economics, and then from there, I was fortunate enough to start off in investment banking here in New York for the telecom, media, and technology industries, and then I eventually landed. I think would have been a dream job for me in storytelling at Essence Communications as their general manager. So it's exciting. It was a fortuitous journey for me, but one that was impassioned by this desire to be close to storytelling. And then after a couple of years at Essence and their independent nature, media brands reached out to me and said, why don't you come and help us to figure out these investment strategies to get closer to diverse-owned media companies like Essence. And so here I am today, excited to be here, excited to talk to you all about how to think about this area of diversity, equity, and inclusion in media, and then to answer any questions that you all may have, and to hopefully see you all at some point later in your careers in a potential role here at Media Brands. So Sham, I guess I'll turn it over to you if you want to just introduce yourself, and then we can get into our discussion today.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, for the intro. So I'm Sham. I actually am a senior research manager with our media trials team at Magna. I'm relatively new. I've been working with Magna since November last year. And my career trajectory has been a little bit unusual given the backgrounds of marketing. I actually have also an unusual trajectory career-wise too, because I did the normal path of going to college right out of high school, but I didn't have the right mindset. So I took a few years off, went back to college when I was 24, and just completed my master's last year. And I'm a first generation, college degree holder in a Latinx family. So that was a huge accomplishment. And for the past 10 years, I've been working in healthcare research prior to this, doing a lot of qualitative work and working with marginalized communities. So this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I have a specific focus on working with transgender people who are going through gender-affirming surgeries. But I found after 10 years of working in healthcare research that I wanted to change my path. And that's why I decided to move into marketing. And so it goes to show that you don't necessarily have to have a straightforward trajectory and a clear idea of what you want to do, because you might find that you have other interests later on in life and you want to explore something that might more align with what you are interested in at the moment. So I just, want to put that out there, that life is not a clear path. You have options, even if you're 10 years into a career already. And so for Magna Media Trials, we run media trials for some of the biggest companies that you know of. And we have the opportunity to test new ideas that they're thinking of promoting, whether it be advertising or even different ways of connecting the brand to consumer. And this could even be in a TV show format. And we replicate their environment, whether it be a social media feed or a TV show, in vivo, in a live interaction between the consumer and whatever media experience that we have. So it's a way for us to give the brands an idea of what their idea is going to play out like in real life. And we've done a lot of great studies, a lot of thought leadership studies, including the Deconstructing Diversity Today project that I'm going to cover. And we're really interested in getting a wide variety of perspectives whenever we do our media trials. We want to hear from everybody because the consumer just doesn't look one way, doesn't think one way. And that's why we always strive for incorporating diverse perspectives into our trials. And we will get more into how we integrated that approach into our study for Deconstructing Diversity Today. And I believe that's everything that I have for now, Joy.
That's great. Thank you, Sham. That was a great introduction. And to Sham's point, I mean, there is no straight and narrow road when it comes to getting into this advertising industry. And in fact, whatever your passion is, or in some cases, if you feel as if you have a purpose that you are deeply passionate about or rooted in, I think there's many different angles, to be honest, to get into advertising. And that's one of the things that I do love about being here at Media Brands and this particular agency is that they really encourage you. Media Brands encourages you to explore different paths. Once you're here, I've been now at Magna for close to a year and a half, but once you're here, the goal is to really understand and get to know and network with other agencies. We call them SBUs, or specialty business units, but it's essentially other agencies underneath Media Brands and underneath Interpublic Group, so that you can discover opportunities to utilize your skill set and your knowledge and bring that knowledge to the industry or to our clients. And one of the things that I really love about Magna in particular, although we're a smaller agency within Media Brands, we're an agency that by nature gets the pleasure of actually working with Reprise and and Initiative and Media Brands Content Studio and Matterkind and Kinesso and Axiom and all of the other agencies that I think you all have probably heard about today. Magna strengthens all of our agencies with the knowledge and the foundation to make better and more informed decisions when it comes to how to approach the market, the media market. We have an amazing team of both general market and audience intelligence analysts and research leaders. Sham talked about one of those lanes, which is our media trials lane. We also have an audience intelligence team that produces information and knowledge that helps us to understand media consumption patterns and behaviors, as well as also how what we call multicultural, but you can also call it how diverse audiences interact with media and what they care most about when it comes to their media consumption behaviors. And then we also have a general market research team that will just research trends and growth rates and how certain industry verticals are responding to the advertising market. Where are we going from a social media perspective perspective or a search media perspective, they really know all of the aspects. They not only understand those industries today and those media trends and patterns today, but they ultimately will predict and forecast our thoughts, our Magna proprietary thoughts on where we think those industries are going. So I love being here because I work with all of our agencies, and whatever they need, whatever problems they're looking to solve, whatever gaps of knowledge or understanding that their clients have, Magna gets to partner with those agency teams and with those client teams in order to provide better solutions. And so this is just a little bit, and again, some of these slides you all may have seen earlier, but I do want to triangulate back into this notion of media for good. So again, Magna sits at the center of all of these different agencies, and we touch and work with all of them, which is one of the things that's so exciting about our role. And from there, again, we get to learn about and understand how all of these agencies work to solve problems and to help our clients market their brands either differently or in more innovative ways. So we ultimately provide all of these services, but at the core of it, us being a trusted advisor, our analysts are industry renowned for what they do. Their data and insights end up being utilized by most of the major media companies at this point in time, as well as most major financial service institutions. We will also help our clients with their go-to-market strategies, which essentially is really what are the types of media channels that you want to buy, what is your media mix, at what rates and what pricing structure, and then how can we help you to be more strategic in the types of audiences that you're talking to. So again, that's this sort of diverse audience strategy as well. So all of that we take part in and support clients in. I'll just skip this slide and just go to again. This is how we support all of our specialty of the agencies in not only in ad forecasting and media consumption. And when we say partnerships, we mean their media partnerships. So we will work with the NBC Universals and the Viacoms and all of the major media companies, but we'll also work with the smaller independent companies, and now in a growing way, the diverse-owned media companies to create unique strategies, unique marketing campaigns and programs, and to help our clients think about the right approach and the right partners to work with. This is just a little bit of an overview. You may have seen this slide earlier today in the Magna presentation, but just another, these are the types of reports we produce, but everything from global advertising forecasts to how to look at the programmatic landscape and what does that, what's happening and what's really the trends going forward in programmatic, which is really bidder. It's buying based on more of a bidding structure to media rates. And then the Deconstructing Diversity today on the left here, which you'll hear more about from Sham. But all of this, really comes back to, on the original agenda, I talked about this notion of media for good. At the end of the day, clients, and when I say clients, I mean, an example would be T-Mobile or H&M or AstraZeneca or Merck. When you go into a grocery store, when you go into a pharmacy, you see all of these amazing products. You pick up the product, the brand on it is a potential client of media brands. All of those clients need to understand how to talk to you as a consumer, or how to talk to any consumer, and how to ensure that their products stand out more than another one of their competitors. I would say a decade ago, for advertising agencies, you can really, any of those brands can go with us. They can go with media brands, or they can go with any of our competitors. WPP, they can go with any of our competitors. And 10 years ago, what distinguished what company a client would go with may have been more informed by whether or not they had the right data sets, or whether or not there was a proprietary technology solution. But today, more and more, what clients care about is our thought and our principles around media for good. And media for good is really media that creates an impact around some area of responsible content, responsible storytelling, or responsible communications with audiences. And that's really the last couple of years in particular, that approach has changed because really by really the nature of social activism and social outreach by key audiences and key groups that have said, we want brands to care about us, not just how we spend money on their brands, but we want brands to care about who we are as a people, how we think as a people, our identity as a people, as Sham will talk about, the social causes we care about. We want brands to understand our feelings, our thoughts, who we are, and we want those brands and how they communicate to us to represent who we are as a people. And so from there, that created this whole concept of media for good. How is a brand going beyond just, we call it spots and dots, or just running a commercial, or just running an ad unit with their logo or their brand attached? How are they really creating real content, real storytelling, real branded content initiatives or media campaigns that have a responsible approach to who different audiences of people are? So from there, that created our equity investment initiative and our equity upfront. That's this top box here. I have the pleasure of mounting our equity upfront every year, along with other monthly equity sessions where we introduce diverse-owned media companies to our clients. We introduce their capabilities. We help our clients to understand why these diverse-owned media companies are important to their media mix, or important to think about in their media strategies. And we ultimately were also helped to structure unique deals, usually long-term relationships between those diverse-owned media companies and our clients. And thankfully, since we've launched this initiative 13 months ago, so it would have launched in March of 2021, we've been able to increase the investment, the media spend and investment that our clients have put towards diverse-owned companies by nearly 300%. And the goal is to eventually, by 2023, the end of 2023, have at least 5% of our media billings that are booked with diverse-owned companies. And that's really important because the research has told us that diverse audiences care about ownership. They will put their time, their attention, their money, and their energies into companies and into brands that are owned by their cultural cohorts. So diverse ownership is really important. It also goes towards building trust with these diverse communities. I think these diverse communities have said, look, we trust that the content that we're receiving from a media company that's owned by my culture, that it will represent my culture in a way that's authentic, and in a way that really is credible to who I am as an individual. So that's become a really big initiative for us, and our clients care. Thankfully, they also, want to move in this direction. So it's really just about finding those right partnerships. So that's what our equity upfront does. Another media for good aspect of who we are is the media responsibility principles. And so again, this was born out of what has been, a long need. I mean, this need has existed now for many, many years, for our clients to understand that the media companies they're working with care about certain principles that ensure that their content is protecting the community of people that they're serving. So we put out what's called a media responsibility index every quarter, where we look at, it started with social media companies and it's now expanding to include other forms of content companies. But we look at and we'll score how those media companies index as it relates to no hate speech, for example. So we'll ask them questions that help us to evaluate whether or not their content is minimizing hate speech, whether they're promoting respect in their content, whether or not there is diversity and representation in their content, whether or not they're minimizing misinformation and disinformation. All of those principles lend themselves to us ultimately giving them a score as to how they're doing. And, really, to be completely honest, this Media Responsibility Index has helped our media companies to evolve their internal policies and has actually ensured that they've done a better job of creating content that really protects the audiences and the people that they serve. So this is all media for good. I'm happy to say that Media Brands is really leading the industry when it comes to this. The principles that we've created have been adopted by the General Assembly of Responsible Media. They've been adopted by all of the media associations, the 4As, all of those associations, the associations that ultimately inform this industry. And they've also really been accepted and acknowledged as being pioneering when it comes to the clients that we serve. So I'm happy and excited about that. And at the end of the day, I'll just wrap with this slide and say that one of the reasons, and I'll just put in a little bit of a pitch for Magna. At the end of the day, I believe Magna is an amazing agency because we do it all. We create value for our clients. We educate and inform the market as well as our clients. We help our clients and our agency teams think of an innovative approach. We connect people, not only clients to media companies, but we connect people to clients. We help to inform content. We're responsible. And at the end of the day, we think very seriously and insightfully about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Magna is definitely a place to think about as you all are matriculating throughout your academic careers. Think about us and just think broadly about Media Brands as well. So I think what we'll do is I'll turn it over to Sham and let her share her screen to take you through the diversity, deconstructing diversity, and then we'll get into a conversation.
Okay. Do I need to be made co-host for this? Yes.
I think so. Are you able to share, Sham?
Mm-mm.
Okay. If not, I will try to pull it up.
Say, I can reclaim the host and then I'll share host with you, Sham.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did that work for you? Oops, I didn't even realize I wasn't even on my face. Did you receive the host capability on your end?
No, it looks like it was assigned to Joy again.
Okay, let's see. I'll reclaim it on my end and I'm going to give it to Sham. Change host.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So as Joy mentioned, I wanted to cover off on a study that we did back in 2021, which focuses on deconstructing the idea of diversity. This study had many goals, too many to name here, but I wanted to highlight a couple for you. First, here we go. We wanted to change the mindset of the marketplace, meaning that agencies and clients, when I do say that, and we wanted to continue the conversation with diverse consumer audiences outside of prime marketing opportunities. And you may be familiar with these, such as Hispanic Heritage Month, Black History Month, and Pride Month. And our second goal was to transform thinking around identity, an idea that is too complex. And instead, we really wanted to celebrate the richness of all intersectional identities. And going deeper into this idea, the premise of the study was to understand that, we're always learning and continuing to evolve in our understanding of one another. So we really sought to understand this question that might seem simple to answer, which is, what does diversity mean today? However, the answer to that question obviously isn't very straightforward. So with our work, our group really wanted to learn more about diversity that went beyond the traditional paradigms that we learned through popular culture. And we wanted to know more about whether diversity is based on one aspect of identity, or is it more? So one thing that we did know for sure was that diversity is more than just a checkbox on a survey, and that it was critical to understand the concept of diversity from all perspectives. And finally, we really wanted to know what makes up identity and what's culture's role in shaping it, if any, and vice versa. As far as methods to answer these questions, we used two approaches, which are quantitative and qualitative. We were very intentional with our approach to understand that we heard from as many people from as many backgrounds as possible. So to do this, we made sure our participants were nationally representative in all identity categories, including age, gender, income, as well as race, ethnicity. And we offered the survey both in English and Spanish to remove one less barrier in letting people share their thoughts with us. For our focus groups, we wanted to ensure that the person leading the group had an identity that aligned in some way with participants. So this allowed for more fluent and frank conversation among our participants. And finally, to reach maximum diversity for our audience, we included a booster sample for LGBTQ+ and people with disabilities. Again, our goal was to challenge ourselves to learn more about diversity beyond the traditional paradigms. And this is what we found. So first off, I wanted to cover on what we found are the components of identity. And our study allowed us to investigate the baseline components of identity, which makes up who we are. And one component that we might be very familiar with is heritage. And heritage is passed down from us from one generation to the next, and it can include various aspects of culture, such as values and traditions associated with that culture. Next, we have culture. And culture is more than is just what is passed down to us, although that might be part of it. And for the most part, culture corresponds with what's happening today. And it can include beliefs, values, and practices, but not ones that we grew up with. And these tend to be fluid and ever-changing as both we and culture evolve over time. And finally, there is an interest and desire to learn more about other cultures other than our own. And this can be a cultural curiosity that we include. We can be interested in learning about other cultures and engage with other cultures on a deeper level. So all of these together make up components of who we are. While some aspects of identity are chosen, we all know that others are not. However, today we do have more power to choose to live in alignment with some aspects of our identities. For example, many of us have the choice to accept aspects of our heritage and decide whether we will carry those practices forward into the next generation. This offers us the opportunity to leave behind any practices or beliefs that may no longer work for us or no longer serve us. And although we're born with some aspects of our identity, there's others that we adopt by choice. So it's this unique marriage of chosen and not chosen identity that really makes us unique from one another and crafts an identity that's authentically our own. Now, and we found, and I think many people are aware of this today, is that intersectionality is today's a reality. When we asked people about their identities, it became clear that people see their identities as intersecting with one another. And when I say that, they see one identity, such as race, ethnicity, intersecting with their gender. And so overall, our participants felt strong attachment to multiple identities, with 3/4 of our participants identifying with 4 or more identity groups. In fact, we found that the average number of identities that people identified with was 8. And this was consistent across all racial ethnic categories. And so we see here that identity has a lot of nuances that we do need to consider. Naturally, there's more to identity than race ethnicity, because we would be missing out on a lot if we just base it on that. We found from this study that family was the most common identity group across all racial ethnic categories. However, other identity components such as language, disability, and hobbies shape that as well. And for our LGBTQ audiences, we found that attachment to hobbies was just as strong as attachment to their sexual orientation. And so we found that overall LGBTQ audience in the study identified with 9 different identities on average. And with people with disabilities, as part of our study, we learned that they're more likely to identify with family and language more than with their disability, which may seem like an obvious thing. And so this is a very good example of thinking beyond simple labels that we apply to one another based upon first impression, and that people are rich and nuanced, and they're composed of many different identities, most of which we can't know until we get to know the person. And we have two participants here, Alexis and Stephanie, who told us that their disability is not their defining feature, but really it's a part of who they are. And I believe, yep, I could play a little video here just so we could hear from them. Hopefully you can hear the audio. Are you able to hear the audio? Nope. All right, I'll move past that. We also found that people not only want to connect with their own identity groups, now that this is the third block of identity, which is cultural curiosity. And we found that the desire to learn more about the broader culture is the broader world is ubiquitous. And that 93% of our participants actually showed a strong cultural curiosity. This means that people are really interested in learning more about other people and their cultures, and that attachment to culture is not just about your immediate surroundings, but can extend across time and space. We also found that some aspects of identity are shaped by culture, but they can also be reaffirmed through culture as well. For example, being able to see oneself represented in media can be both powerful, but it's also even more affirming when you see it represented in a positive light. And I have video again, but since it doesn't seem like audio is working right now, I'll skip over it. But we have two participants here saying how they felt more included when they see people featured like them, and especially, people from marginalized communities like Black and Latinx, to not be portrayed in a negative light, but in a positive light is even more affirming and makes you feel better, as Jacob would say. And so the key findings from our project was that first, people identify themselves based upon many identities, not just one single aspect. And so the key elements of identity for our project were race, ethnicity, language, and family. Second, the richness of identity today includes choice. However, we need to keep in mind that our identities include other aspects that are not chosen but inherent. And finally, people have a strong desire to learn about other cultures, and these attachments extend across time and space. And I believe this is the last slide. When we do have questions that we would like to pose to the group, but I know that Joy and I also wanted to open up the conversation to everyone out there to see if anybody had any questions.
Yes, please let us, if you have questions about Magna, media brands, what our media trials team does, or about this whole notion of media for good and how the research, so for example, the research that Sham has done, and these are insights here, these key findings, and it helps us to advise and inform us on the approach that our clients, should consider when they're developing their content, but also developing the media that also aligns with how they speak to these audiences. But in general, I mean, just as everyday citizens and students and professionals, we just would also love your feedback and your thoughts on how identity and the intersections, if you will, between identity and culture and heritage. So any questions that you all have, let us know. Okay, and then let's see, or you can chat them. No, Nicole was saying that she's from Los Angeles as well, South Central. Thank you, Nicole. Or if you all want to talk about where you're from, we can do that as well. Okay, great. I guess if there's no questions, we can throw out some of the thought starters here for our open conversation. I think we have a nice group here to potentially have a conversation. So I don't know, Sham, do you want?
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to just, ask the group, how do you see components of your identity play out in your everyday life, whether it's academic or professional?
Okay, great. And if we don't get any a whole lot of takers. I guess for me, just one, like an example, and the nuances, and maybe Sham, it would be interesting. I think it's your second slide, to go back to that, the one where you where you sort of define, yes, this one, that one's the slide, with the beautiful woman and the words on her face, where you kind of define identity. Yes, this one.
Yeah.
So just to make sure, just a recap. So self-identity, as Sham took us through, it's a combination of what's inherited, it's a combination of personal choice, and it's also a combination of cultural curiosity and that desire to learn about other cultures. And so it's really interesting. I guess one thing that I'll throw out there about myself, for example, of course, I identify as being Black, or African American. That's a key part of who I see myself as an identity. But another identity that has, I guess, evolved, was not necessarily inherited, but has become a part of, my particular group, is that I'm a mother of a 6-year-old and a 4.5-year-old. And I find myself now spending more time with other parents that have children that are age 7 or younger than I even do with my family, as an example. So I identify now not only as a Black woman, but also as a Black mother, or just as a mother in general, who has young children. And the more that I am able to interact and spend time with other parents who have children their age, that has become a part of my identity, for better or for worse. I don't know that I knew that going into motherhood, but it's definitely evolved to be a particular group of people that I spend time with. So if there are like examples, I know many of you may be involved in clubs or organizations, or have other parts of your identity that may now be a part of what's become a choice versus what's been inherited. Just would love to know more about that. Oh, and Nicole is just reminding us to come off of mute and to turn on your video.
I was more so saying the students are in the lobby, so they can't come off of mute in video.
Oh, I see.
So I thought, I apologize if that wasn't communicated. So students, if you're watching in the lobby, if you're watching on YouTube, same with the previous sessions, if you have any comments or questions, please message them directly to us or use the text HPCU to 33222. We're also paying attention to that. Sorry to just interrupt that, but okay, I'll let you all continue.
Yeah.
Oh no, okay, I'm so sound. Oh
One
yeah,
thing-
so if you all want to chat, I apologize because I know that it's it may not be as interactive to not be able to come off of video, but if you want to chat any thoughts, we'd be happy to do so. Or again, questions that you may have. And if not, then I think we can probably wrap a few minutes early.
And do you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, and so I'll actually go back down to that slide. Here we go. So how do you see components of identity play out in your everyday life, whether it's academic or professional, or quite frankly, if you see any questions on here that speak to you more, we'd like to hear from you. And I think, just to reflect, for me, I think identity is highly contextual. And I think given that our identity intersects with one another on a daily basis, you have to sometimes prioritize one identity or the other, given your context. And I know in some cases, my Latinx identity is prioritized over others, including my gender. And I think that it's just a really interesting way in which we navigate the world and how our identity and the way we prioritize them are ever fluctuating.
So with that being said, I know that a few students were kind of promoted to be participants as speakers and attendees on this portion. So is there anyone who kind of wants to come off of mute, I don't want to call names, but if there are any portions of this, that matter, or that you have thoughts on, we'd love to hear them. So I know that I'm looking at what does representation mean to you, whether it's in the media or otherwise. I think that that's really important, just being able to see, myself in different ways. So if I go to a mall, I want to see representation, for example, in an advertising. I honestly am that type of consumer where I will go into stores and look for at least someone that looks like me on the walls in their advertising. So I know that representation matters to me in that way. But are there any other thoughts? You can drop it in the chat. For those here, you can come off mute and share your video, but the ones in the lobby or on YouTube, I'd love to hear more about that from you too. And I'll be on the lookout to share anything that I see.
And I will say that I'm media brands alone cannot take credit for this, but I am pleasantly pleased that the images that I have been seeing in commercials, even the images that I've seen in original content that certain platforms have created, like Netflix or Hulu is another example. There's other cable networks, to be completely honest. I've cut the cord. It's what's called cord cutters, when you no longer have a cable network subscription, but you're only doing streaming platforms like Netflix and Hulu and Disney. Again, I'm that mother. So like the platforms, the apps or the streaming services that have children's content, I'm all over these days. But I am pleasantly happy to see the transition. It's noticeable to me that more cultural groups and cultural identities are being included in content and in the programs that I see. Not just like the Bridgertons of the world and some of the more adult programming, but the children's programming. Encanto is one of my children, one of their favorite. It's one of their favorite movies, and that features a very diverse sort of Colombian background and heritage, rich culture, whether it's dress, food, clothing. It's really it's become their favorite, and so I see that, and I see more of an intentional effort to include the diversity that's represented in this world in the content that I'm watching and in the commercials and imagery that I see and how brands are trying to connect with people. So I'm happy about that. There's still more work to do for sure. And in dealing with the multi-dimensional aspect of identity. But I'm at least happy to see that we're moving in the right direction.
I see someone sent in a text, representation matters, to be honest, because there's more than just one race in the world. We should all be seen and visible. So that was a message that came in. Also, to your point about Encanto, I think that that's something we're definitely starting to see more. I agree. Even when I watched Encanto, we got to see the diversity of people in Colombia, right? So I think that oftentimes a lot of people don't know that there are Black people who live in Colombia. But we got to see that in Encanto in different ways. So we saw curly hair, we saw straight hair, we saw hair, no hair, almost like mine. But I think that it was beautiful to see that, and for youth. For children to also be able to see that as we work to kind of create more of an equitable world where everyone is valued for their identities. But I also see in the chat, Taisha, she says, hello, my name is Taisha. I go to Norfolk State University. I'm a fine arts major. I'm from New York City. I want to say thank you for speaking about identifying yourselves. For me, it was very hard for me identifying myself as a young Black Caribbean woman from Brooklyn who speaks more fluent than others. So thank you for that, Taisha. I just wanted to share some comments coming in.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. It's definitely, I think, an exciting topic. It's a complex topic, and one that has many nuances, as Sham has shared from the research study that we did. But we're just really excited. And if any of you have questions or even thoughts on or ideas on where we should go with some of the programming and some of the research topics that we're exploring, please let us know. I think our contact information is under the speaker section of this platform, and we'll make sure that you all have access. You can also go on magnaglobal.com, and our contact details are there listed under the directory of people. But it's just been a pleasure for us to spend this time with you and to share a little bit about what we're doing that we're hoping is making a positive impact in media, the industry overall, and how people see themselves represented across content and across advertising, and that is hopefully helping to arm brands with the tools they need to have different types of conversations with the multitude of diversity that exists in our world today. So we're excited to be here. Again, ping us if you have anything, any questions, or if you just want to chat one-on-one. I know sometimes it can be hard being put on the spot in these types of forums, but if you want to just chat one-on-one, we'd be more than happy to have a sidebar with you offline. But thank you so much. Nicole, I don't know if there's anything else we should consider.
I was going to say, I just see one last comment.
Okay.
And then after that, what we can do is transition. But I see greetings, everyone. My name is Corin B. Shaw. I'm a senior mass communications major concentrating in public relations. I attend Southern University Agricultural and Mechanical College. I wanted to say diversity is starting to make its way through movies such as Encanto, as well as our diversity into other facets of the world in media. It puts optimism into the ways of the world. It truly is helping color the palette of the numerous industries out there. So I absolutely agree with you. And, I think that our panelists might agree too, but I'll let them dive in a little bit more.
Sham, I'll let you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because being in social science for so long, that's my background. I'm actually an anthropologist in practice. And so I spent so many years talking about identity. And to me, these conversations have been happening for a while, but then when you're in a bubble, you forget that some of these conversations haven't made it into mainstream yet. And so to see movies like Encanto, to see representation across the LGBTQ community and different gender identity expressions, it's more than just about race, ethnicity. It's about gender identity. It's about, just any sort of facet that you identify with is being represented now. And that's so much more empowering and affirming than it was compared to when I was a child and not being represented in the media. And so I know that we've covered off on Encanto enough, but I think it's a great movie that's moving us in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with Sham. I'm excited to her point to see more examples of that and more dimensions of identity that are played out in what we're seeing. And that also, I don't know if you all know that we don't talk about Bruno is actually the #1 streamed song from any Disney soundtrack ever, even more popular than Let It Go. I was actually shocked. I just found that out last week. But again, like having two little ones, but it does mean that the world is ready and receptive to beginning to receive these different forms and expressions of diversity. So it's exciting to say, not that there was anything wrong with Let It Go, but the fact that this song, from a Latin-based and type of culture, is the #1 streamed song of any Disney soundtrack was really, really exciting for me to hear, and just also again proof that the world is ready for these types of different expressions of diversity. Okay, well, great. Nicole, thank you so much for creating this platform. You are my shero. We're so happy to have been invited to do this. And anytime that you need Magna or media brands to be a part of any of these forums and platforms, it's so important to have this. Thank you for your leadership and all the work that you've been doing. So bravo to you. And just let us know whenever you need anything, or again, keep us in mind and reach out to us for any of those that are in the holding room or here on the platform. We're so grateful for your time and grateful that you were open and receptive to hearing about this very important topic in media today. So thank you again.
Thank you. Really, we do
No.
appreciate it.
No, thank each of you. I think that this is such an important conversation. I think that, as you both stated, as we work to create a better world, a world where everyone feels seen, I think that these kind of conversations need to continue to happen. So I definitely know I'll be reconnecting with you all, because we do want, these kind of conversations, especially since you all have already done the research, have already created and invested the time into really diving into it in a different way than what we're used to. So I really appreciate you all. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and transition into our next panel. So that begins in 5 minutes. So we'll go ahead and send everyone to the lobby, and we'll see you very shortly. But thank you again, Sham and Joy.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole.
Mhm.
Bye.
Thanks, Shan.